Hey everybody, this is Mike with the One Stop Co-op Shop, and today I'm reviewing Metal Gear Solid, the board game, the solo and cooperative adaptation of the famed video game. And disclaimer that I got a review copy of the retail edition of this one. In Metal Gear Solid, 1 to 4 players control Solid Snake and his allies, going through a mix of stealth missions, trying to evade guards while also fighting bosses in separate boss missions. You can progress through a narrative campaign based on the video game, or just play one-off VR missions. And the core gameplay is an action system where you're moving, attacking, those kind of things, with a lot of it resolved using dice. So let's discuss 5 key things to know about Metal Gear Solid, the board game. So my number 5 point, the least important one to know, is that the game is an adaptation of a video game. And on the positive side, for someone like me who played the heck out of Metal Gear Solid and the whole series back in the day, they have great references to the key story moments in the game. They have missions that bring to life some of the most exciting gameplay moments. So it really is a fun little trip down nostalgia lane. But on the negative side, the Metal Gear series storylines have always been a little bit crazy. And while they present a lot of stuff here to help the uninitiated maybe understand what the heck is going on, I think most people are going to be pretty confused if they don't already have history with the game. And also, while it's cool that they recreated so many moments from the video game, not all of them are as exciting to play in a board game sense. Like sometimes I would be doing stuff and I'd be like, yeah, I know this was in the video game, but this isn't actually fun. So it's cool that they did such a faithful adaptation, but it's not always best for gameplay. And in a related point, my number 4 is focused on player count. This is also a mix for my taste. So you've got 4 characters in the game, and they each have different abilities, different equipment they come with, and some of them are highly different, especially Adaptation, who can't attack but can hack things and kind of play around with the game that way. And in the VR missions, you can freely mix and match the characters, play with 1 to 4 however you like. But in a large portion of the campaign, you are limited to only 1 or then 2 characters for quite a while. So if you're trying to play with a group of 3 or 4, it's really kind of awkward. You can't really play through the campaign unless you sort of share characters. Now for solo, you can just multi-hand characters, and I found that works very well. But to get to sort of the cooler characters, especially Gray Fox and Adaptation, you have to control 3 or 4 characters all at once in the campaign, which can be a little bit onerous. So again, they were trying to match the reality of the video game, but it doesn't make the playability quite as fun as I would like. Next, in my number 3, which is also a mix, are the boss battles. You have several of these in the campaign. And on the positive side, the bosses are quite varied and interesting. They each have their own rules. They each have their own activation deck. Many of them have sort of Kingdom Death monster-ish mechanics where like you flip cards as you do things and they react to you in different ways. But at least for me, in my experience, I found most of these boss stages were kind of more about the gimmick and were less inherently interesting than the stealth stages that I'm about to talk about. Because for a lot of them, it just eventually comes down to blast them a bunch and roll a bunch of dice. And that is the least interesting way to play the game, I think. But they still can be fun, and it is quite impressive how varied they got the design of each one to bring to life the characters. My number 2 point, which is a full pro for my taste, is the core action system and how equipment and focus tokens play into that. So on your turn, you can take up to 4 actions, although some will require multiple actions to take. You'll be moving around, you'll be attacking people, trying to be sneaky or aggressive. And based on how many noisy actions you take, you'll have to roll some dice, and they might make the guards pinpoint your location, so you have kind of a risk-reward in the stealth sections. That's all pretty straightforward. Turns move quickly, it works well. Then each character has these focus tokens that can mitigate their luck, mitigate their attacks. You can get them back by spending actions later on, so you have kind of these like rushes and these waiting turns that work really well. And things get even cooler as you unlock more equipment in the campaign. They even want you, like in the video game, to go back and replay stages with new equipment. I won't spoil any of the really cool stuff. But like in the video game itself, the equipment you unlock gives you new ways to play things. Like you can be like way more stealthy and kind of have new tricks to make stages way easier. And then you can bring that into the VR mode. So just some really cool stuff going on with your characters. Well, my number 1 point for Metal Gear Solid, the one I think is most important to know about the game, is the stealth system. And for me, this is a full pro with some caveats. I think it's great. So about half the campaign missions and all the VR missions are stealth missions. And you'll be moving around. You can try to fight people or choke them out, but you can also try to avoid them. And this feels like a mix of 2 stealth games that I really, really enjoy. The first one is Burn Cycle because it has a similar mechanic with an awareness token. So you'll like leave your noise token behind you and guards will go to investigate and do different things when they reach it. But then if they actually see you, you've got the alarm triggered and you have to like really hide for a while to actually evade them. And then it also has a card activation system that reminds me a bit of SAS Rogue Regiment in that you have a lot of information on where the guards are going to go and how they're probably going to turn, but you don't know exactly exactly how far they're going to move. You have like some extra little events. They might turn around unexpectedly. So you need to stay on your toes, and also keeps the stealth pretty replayable, especially when you switch out which characters and which equipment and things you have. Now, the one negative is the randomness of the dice rolling. I've had games where I, just moved a little bit and just happened to roll the exact wrong thing and didn't have the resources to re-roll it. And in some situations, once you're seen, it's pretty much just game over. Now, the good thing is these stealth missions are super fast. I've found like 15 to 20 minutes. So if you have to reset and try again, kind of like in the video game, it's not that big a deal. Just, listen to Snake scream and get right back to it. So overall, you might want to check out Metal Gear Solid the board game if you're a fan of stealth games, if you like solo or two-player games, because that's kind of the best way to experience this. And especially if you've heard about the video game and been interested in it, or you've played it before, I think the nostalgia blast here is great. But on the other hand, if the video game doesn't interest you at all, I'm not sure if the narrative will hold much sway. And if you don't like games that can be pretty random, the game might frustrate you. And finally, if you're going to play it mostly with 3 to 4 players, it's kind of a more awkward way to experience this one. But if you want to see it in action, I have playthroughs of both some stealth stages and some boss stages, so you can get kind of an overall picture of how it plays. Good gaming, and I'll see you at the next stop.